Hi, everybody. How is everybody this evening? It's so nice to have you all with me in this evening, or with us in this evening. It's really nice that you could come again, and it is such a privilege for me to organize this evening. I am going to get everyone a healer now, so just be patient. I'm going to go away, and I'll come back in just a minute or two. Okay, everyone has their own personal healer for the evening, and I remind you all that if you have people who are in need of healing, you can ask your healer to please heal those people. All you do is have to think that thought, and he will take care of it. So you do not have to worry about that. And now I will get Rankar for you. One moment, please. Good evening. It is I, Rankar. It is my pleasure to be with you in this evening. And I guess it is normal for me to give a little talk, but I had not yet decided what to speak about. Many have been concerned about this virus, and it is the topic of conversation which comes up constantly. And perhaps you would prefer not to hear anything more about it, because it goes on and on and on. One of the things I am going to mention is that much of the information that you are receiving, although helpful, may not really be helpful. It may cause you to feel even more anxious. And so you must be careful on how much you listen to these reports or the things that you read about these things. For keeping the right attitude for yourself is most important, because with the right attitude in your head, you can remain positive. You can be determined to remain positive, to remain healthy, to know that everything will turn out all right. There are endless speculations about whether people once recovered from this virus, can they get it again? How much immunity will they have? Will you have a second wave? Will you have a third wave? Will it flatten? What will happen? And these things can all be frightening, because if others don't know, how can you possibly know? And it is important for you to remain optimistic and happy, and to know that you are safe from the virus because you are healthy. It does not matter how old you are. You just keep that thought that I am extremely healthy. My body works perfectly in every way. My immune system will keep me safe. You need to develop these types of affirmations for yourself about this situation. There is no special concern about whether there will be a second wave or a third wave, or how long it will take for everyone to get over this virus, so that people feel that they can open up and return to life as it once was, without the thought or the worry that they might infect themselves or infect someone else. And what is helpful, as I have said, is the affirmations. So you know that you are safe. You must know that the precautions you take keep you safe, that they also keep others safe, that this virus is just running its course like any other virus or flu virus that comes around in the winter time, and with spring and summer, everyone will regain perfect health again. and you will be able to enjoy your social time with one another. You will be back at work, earning the money that you need for your own existence and for your wealth in your life. And so that is my suggestion in this evening concerning worries that you might have over this virus. Do not think about what could possibly happen. Know that all will be well, that this virus will too run its course, that people recover successfully from this virus all the time. And those are all good signs, for the human body is an amazing temple of God. God has established it with its own immune system, a system of maintaining the health of the body. And it is true, it sometimes does go awry or fails to do the job. And simply getting old, the body does not always sustain itself well. And so it weakens before it gives up the ghost, so to speak, and allows you to transition into the eternal life of spirit from whence you came, so that you must have confidence in yourself, in your body, and in your great good health. And so we are ready to take questions.
Yes, I would like to just interject. One person in the chat room had just typed in that her name is Nancy. One of her employers took his life this past week, and she's totally devastated about it because he was a friend, and her heart's broken. I don't know if you want to address any of that.
Well, certainly. What would she like to know?
Well,
is she wondering?
She just mentioned it in the chat, so I thought that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Can I please connect with him somehow to know that he's at peace?
You want to try to connect with your co-worker who has taken his life? This may not be possible at this time. Would you, however, give me his name? I will ask Juana to see if she can find a connection or give you a report. I am assuming that.
Do you want his full name or just his first name?
A first and last name is helpful.
John Robina.
Okay, one moment, please. Juana has, it is difficult to use the word connected with him, but he has safely made this transition. He is a bit bewildered, if you can understand that. Frequently, particularly with people who take their own lives, it is a difficult, I don't want to say it is a difficult transition for them, because the transition is automatic and it is instantaneous, and there is only good around the transition. But with the state of mind that a person has when they take their own lives, they are often bewildered and confused as they first come into the spirit life, the spirit world, the spirit existence, however you choose to think of it. They cannot respond. You might think of them as a newborn baby who enters into the world of the material world. They are helpless in many ways. They are not able to control their bodies. They have unusual sensations. And while they were expecting this, it is still difficult. Now, for those who take their own life, they sometimes do not believe in an afterlife. They simply want to end the one they are living and what is going on around them. As a result, to find themselves in a state of existence is still confusing for them. And it takes a while for them to all the metaphors I think of are connected with the physical world and are not appropriate. So it is difficult for me to explain, but they are not ready to accept life in an afterworld, and they are just not prepared. They have time. Now, there are individual spirits who will minister to them, to be there with them, but sometimes what they need most is to just rest. That is to say, the equivalent of going to sleep. They cannot respond to questions. They should not be bothered at this time. You need to allow the soul to heal itself, to slowly come to an awareness of the full life that exists when you are out of the body. So we cannot speak to him, but he has transitioned. Juana tells me he has transitioned safely. He is there, he is safe, he is well. And in time, in your time, in his own time, he will respond and enter into the fullness of life again.
I just hope that he is at peace at this point.
That is hard to say because the emotions, to die a natural death, you are frequently, it is happening gradually to some extent. And there is not the high emotional turmoil that happens when someone takes their own life. That high emotional turmoil acts as a block sometimes in the beginning. But I assure you, he will be at peace. He will be at peace.
Thank you, Ronkar. Thank you.
Blessings to you. Are there other questions? All right, we need people to speak up. Bob has a question.
Well, this one came in today as a topic of discussion. And the question concerns the Kabbalion. And anybody who knows anything about the Kabbalion, it's the 7 laws of the universe, which is an ancient text about 4,000 years old. And some of us here, I'm sure, have read it. The first principle being the universe is mental. So the question is how does the law of attraction fit into the laws of the Kabbalion?
Thank you very much for that question. I understand the reason for the question because the law of attraction is nowhere mentioned within the Kabbalion. They have the law of mentalism, which simply says that everything is mental and contained within the mind of God. And there is, there are 7 basic laws. And I do not wish to go into them all, although I can do that if people have further questions. But how does the law of attraction fit into the Kabbalion? Well, the Kabbalion has the second law. The first law is that everything is mental and everything is contained within the mind of God. The second law is the law of vibration that states that everything vibrates. Everything that is vibration. You are all vibration in motion. You know that all molecules vibrate. You got that in your high school classes or maybe even your grammar school classes where they talked about things such as the water vibrating at a higher speed than the earth, and that air molecules vibrate even at greater tempos. Well, within the Kabbalion, they speak of these vibrations And they say that there are 7 vibrations in the physical plane and 7 vibrations in the mental plane. And that includes the spiritual plane. The spiritual mental plane are combined. And you can think of these vibrations, these 7 levels of vibration, as being the vibration, say, of the earth, the rocks, the mountains, the inorganic matter that exists. And then you might go up a vibration to the organic matter that is there, but starting with plants. Just as they would have said in evolution that there first was plant type molecules within the oceans. And then you move on to one single-celled organisms and microscopic plants and animals. And then you move to higher levels and you come to insects, perhaps. And then you come to higher levels and you just simply move up to the chain of existence until you have human life and everything that exists at the animal level. And the more intelligent the being, the higher vibration that exists. Now, the law of attraction states that your vibration attracts to yourself similar things of similar vibrations. It can be simply put as like attracts like. It can also be said that what you think about, what you do, causes similar things to be attracted to you, so that if you give out love, you will receive love. If you give out kindness, you will receive kindness. Now, we think of things on the emotional level, and that is a great divider, I guess I would say, to the different vibrations. But the law of vibration, as it is usually used, is that if you can be at the level of vibration of what you wish to attract to yourself, then you will attract it. So that if you want money, money is a vibration, money is energy, because money helps you to buy things and to create things and to get things that you want. Those are things. But money also contributes to your happiness and your general prosperity and your joy in living. When you have a great deal of money, it is assumed that you are happier than if you are very poor. This is not always true, but it does not matter for the purposes of our speaking. So you want to have more money, you want to experience prosperity, you have to vibrate at a prosperous level. You cannot always be thinking about what you are missing. You cannot say, I don't have enough money to pay my bills, or how am I going to pay my bills? I don't have enough money. And this time in particular can be extremely difficult for people, with so many people not working because they have been told to stay home and socially keep distance from one another. And so if you want love in your life, you have to be a loving person. You give out love. Love makes people be attracted to you. When you love everybody, then they want to receive that love. Everyone wants love. So if you want to be loved, you need to be a loving person and extend love to others, wishing them well, hoping for the best for them, encouraging them. This makes you a very attractive person. You are vibrating at the level of love. And as such, people who want that love will come to you. And they will love you as you give them love. Of course, if you stop loving them, they may not love you any longer. But that is exactly how the law of attraction works. What you give out the attitudes you have, the things, the actions you take will all put you close to others who are like yourself in that way. So that thieves tend to know dishonest people. Murderers tend not to have any good relationships because it is impossible for them. They soon become angry with people. If you are angry with people all the time, you will not have many friends, and angry people will be in your life, and you will be fighting with people because you are angry. You are vibrating at the level of anger. And so people who are similar to you will be attracted to you. Initially, they may see you as good, but it will not be long before you are fighting together as you have fought with other people in the past. It is a concept which makes it possible for you to achieve things that you want. If you want to be successful in life and be known as a success, you have to think of yourself as a success. You need to be confident of yourself. You need to know that people will always recognize the good that you do. You need to know these things about yourself, that whenever you start a project, you always finish it successfully and on time, that you always accomplish the things that you want. And by knowing that, you will manifest those things in your life and you will be termed a success. So that is what the law of vibration does. It is essentially the same as the law of attraction, since the law of attraction tells you to be what it is you want to manifest in your life, and then you will manifest it. I hope this has been helpful.
Well, another question has arisen from someone named Carol. And Carol says, my sister was murdered 10 years ago by her husband, and he just passed away from COVID. How does that carry over to the afterlife? Is there forgiveness?
So I am assuming that since she was murdered by her husband, and you know this to be true, that it was also known to the authorities to some extent, then he has been punished on the earth plane for that particular action of taking a life. When you get into spirit, I know the teachings of heaven and hell, and that you have been taught that God condemns you to hell when you have done grave sins against other people. But that is not always true. That is not true at all. We are pretty equal in spirit. Although people who have been murderers, people who have been thieves, they carry with them from the, let me back up just a moment. When you transition, now this does not happen for those who take their own lives because they are not in a great condition emotionally and mentally when they take this action. And so there is not usually a life review for them that is complete. But when you transition from other things, one of the first things that happens is you have a life review. Now you have been already told this, I'm sure, but it is you looking at all the things that you have done in your life, and you see the consequences that those actions created on the earth plane, something which you usually cannot do when you are on the earth plane. You cannot see the consequences of many of your actions. Many times you can. You know that the consequences you suffered, but you don't know the consequences that other people experienced from your words and your actions. Now suddenly you are in spirit, and you have instant access to all your memories of your life. And not only can you see the consequences that you experienced, but you see the results of your actions manifesting in other people's lives. So that in the case of a murderer, you see how devastating it was for the family of the murdered individual. This causes you deep distress once you are in spirit. And this distress that you experience, this knowledge, this understanding, is forefront in your mind. And it now becomes incumbent upon yourself to understand all these things, all the consequences. So if you have not created in such a way as to create happiness and health for others and for yourself, if you did not create well, you need to, so to say, continue to exist with that realization in your consciousness. And now karma comes into effect and rebirth comes into effect. And you have to figure out how you can, I will say, make up for your actions. What can you do to compensate for the actions you have taken? So the question is there forgiveness? Others do not hold your actions against you, but you have the challenge of dealing with the results of those actions while you are in spirit, which means as a spirit, you may try to help others on the earth plane. You may decide to be a guide. You may decide to incarnate with a particular mission to serve others or help others, to save others. You may choose to be a doctor or a nurse or a religious. You may choose simply to be a simple person, but desire to have the opportunity to serve others in whatever way. And so that is why many people come into the earth plane with very modest goals, but the modest goals are much easier to achieve than the grandiose goals. So, is there forgiveness? It is up to you. Do you forgive yourself? Of course, you understand your motives, you understand what you had. You can forgive yourself when you are in the spirit world. And that allows you to move forward and try to achieve and experience things from the spirit world, which is helpful to others. Otherwise, you start planning another incarnation, looking for the exact time and place to be born, which will most give you the virtues, the ideas, the things that you want to overcome, to demonstrate that you have learned from your action that this is not true. Perhaps you may choose to be a victim of something so that you can experience the horror that you personally inflicted upon someone while you were on the earth plane. And so you may choose to place yourself in jeopardy to experience that. It is not quite the heaven and hell that you have been taught, because all do a life review. And in every life, you see things that you could have done better, ways you could have improved. You see how you could have been better. And so almost everyone in spirit, to some degree or another, is working on their karma, the cause and effect, the law of cause and effect, that what you do has an effect upon others and upon yourself. And so this is, I don't know if I have answered your question. Is there forgiveness in spirit? There is. As for your sister and the man that recently transitioned, who once was her husband and took her life, he has been punished in the physical world. We do not know how he was when he transitioned. And so we assume that he has already regretted his actions, as he had to endure prison for many years and being in a not very happy environment, one that was often difficult. But so that I am sure he has regretted his actions to some extent or another. If he has not yet regretted them, after he passes over and he experiences his life review, he will experience regret, if you will, by seeing and feeling and knowing all the pain and suffering he caused another individual and the family.
She says yes, that answers the question.
You're most welcome. Is there another question from anyone?
Yes, Ron Carr, my name is Elizabeth. I was wondering, do people share spirit guides? Could you be a spirit guide to more than one person?
Yes, that is possible, but mostly everyone has their own. There is no need to share, and even if there was a case of sharing, so to speak, since spirit can be so in multiple places at once, or see multiple people at once, or serve multiple people at once, such a sharing could occur, but it would be no different than if that spirit guide was exclusive to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It just that during meditation last week, I had asked the spirit guide to identify himself, and I thought that he gave your name. And that's why I was asking, because I knew you.
Oh, he gave my name.
Yes, and I knew you were with Norma, and I don't.
But that is a misconception. I am not a spirit guide to the medium. I am a guide to all those who attend her circle, so that anyone who has ever come to one of her sessions, and that would include you, because you are here now, and you were here last week, and you were here another time, and many times now, that you, I would seek to be of service to yourself.
Okay, thank you.
You are most welcome. It is my pleasure to serve everyone that I can, and I can serve, of course, as I have said, many people can be served at the same time, but because we have the ability to individually respond to an individual as they need it, as they desire it. When you are not hampered by the laws of time and space, you have much more ability to be helpful to others, so to speak. And it is my pleasure to be of assistance to anyone who has attended her circle. And if you just ask me, I will do my best to assist you in whatever it is you need to achieve, want to know, or wish to do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Are there other questions?
Yeah, Ron Carr, this is Robyn. Real quick, I'm just curious. We have new management, make a long story short without going into detail. Is there going to be any movement for me upward regarding that? In other words, people shifting or moving on to other things perhaps, and me moving into management this year or at some time? Or at least at the very least getting a raise that I've been after for a while?
Well, as you know, it is a difficult time in the world due to the virus that is going around. Many people are not at all employed, and this puts stress even on situations such as yours, where you happen to be employed, but it does not make your store the most successful. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because so many people are not going out. Most stores cannot, will not have their full complement of sales that they might have had during a normal period when everyone could come and go as they wished without thought of physical consequences of getting sick. And it was also permitted by your governments. So give me one moment. I will try to look at the situation for you, and then just give me a moment, please.
Thank you.
As I look into your store, I see much movement, rearranging things. This will even happen to some extent at the personnel level. I do not know whether you, since I cannot tell exactly what is going on, I do not know whether you will be receiving a raise, certainly not imminently, because the prosperity of the store is not good at this time. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And so they will be seeking to cut expenses, if at all, anything. So rather than to, increase expenses and overhead. So you must be patient in waiting for the raise until you are at least back to normal opening in the state is the phrase that everyone is using, meaning that all businesses are allowed to be open. Everyone has the opportunity to go back to work at their old jobs or to get new jobs, as the case may be. And so that the economy comes around. Then that is when you can next experience the opportunity to perhaps discuss with management. And rather than asking me, it is more important for you to sit down with your manager or managers. You might consider I do not know the level of management in this store, but I would try to go to the highest level you can, rather than just a manager who might be just above you, to communicate and ask directly of the higher manager whether this is an opportunity for you. At least when you make your desires known, then in as nice a way as possible, then you will be able to, you will have a better answer to your question that is more relevant than anything I can say. I can only say at this time, if your store is open and doing business, you are to a certain extent luckier than many people who would wish to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, understood. I just didn't know if there was any movement upward for management that would allow me to go into a management position, and at least in the store itself. But if it's not clear.
I believe that is possible. That is
Okay.
possible, especially as people are somewhat discontented and will be thinking the same things that you're thinking. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So you may have people that you consider to be management maybe moving out, which may give you an opportunity. It may be not directly above yourself, but at a diagonal level to a different area or different department. I'm not 100% sure what I am feeling or seeing.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You are most welcome. Are there other questions?
Ron Carr, I have a question. This is Tanya. Back on the murder that you were speaking of, how does Ron Carr see the legal system with jail? Is jail something that helps the soul with coming through, or it helps the family of the person that was lost? I get mixed messages on if that's a positive thing to help. You know what I mean?
I understand what you are saying.
Okay.
But of course, you know that for the family of the person who has been murdered, it makes them feel better to think that that the person, the murderer himself, is being punished in some way. It eases their burden of sorrow to some degree, however slight that may seem. They feel the person has been put away. That makes everyone else safer. And they do not need to worry about themselves if it was at all connected within a family or something like that, as the case may have been here. They do not have to be worried that their family member who maybe committed this crime will be around and might do it again to someone else in the family. So they can feel safer themselves. And if it happens to be a random one, they often feel safer. So the punishment usually helps the family that has been hurt by the murder of the deceased. Now, for the family members of the murderer, there is also much sorrow, and to a certain extent, jail again also helps them, because although they are sorry this has happened, they do not want their person in jail, their family member in jail. They realize that perhaps he will get some help there. They try to make the best of it. So is the jail system, I think your question is the jail system helpful in stopping a crime? Probably not, because people who commit crimes don't ever think that the consequence may be that they will go to jail. They are thinking only of the good that they are doing at the moment of their passion or whatever it is that is causing them to murder someone. If they are angry that they have lost their temper towards someone, and they are taking the irrational actions of beating them up or choking them or attacking them with a knife or whatever it happens to be, they are not thinking about what is going to happen to them in their future. Punishments rarely stop people from committing crimes. They are usually more concerned with what good they are achieving by committing the crime. Now, that may sound very strange, but a person who murders, if he is frustrated, perhaps the actions are simply the result of his frustrations, and as this is happening, he's not even thinking about what he's doing. And if it's as a result of anger, if it's theft and stealing things from people, well, there's usually a lot of thinking about it. How can I get this? And usually before that is the realization and the desire to have whatever it is they're stealing, whether it's money or possessions, whether they are going to put these into sell them to someone else to get the money that they want? Why are they stealing these things? It's what they are thinking about. So the consequences of their actions are the good they will receive, not that they will be caught and sent to jail. And many criminals are caught and sent to jail, and they don't even think it's a possibility for them. Either they are thinking they are too smart, or they are thinking nothing about the consequences. So when you ask me, does the jail system of punishment work? It depends what you are wishing to achieve by the jail system. At the very least, you have taken someone out of an environment where they can recommit the same crimes that they've done before. And in that sense, you have protected the rest of society, at least for the period of time they are in jail. And many people, while they are in jail, come to realizations and change their thinking and their ways of being. They do receive some help, and many of them do change. And so jail can be helpful to them for the period of time they are there. So the reason you have mixed messages is because it's a mixed solution. Do you have any further question?
Oh, no, thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are there other questions?
Well, I'll take a stab. Maybe we've answered this one before, but whenever we get back to normal, is the new normal going to be different than the old normal?
Is the new normal going to be different than the old normal? Well, as people are always affected by their experiences, there could be, for some people, there will be many changes. Perhaps they will become more anxious about their own health, and that would certainly not be a good result from this experience, simply because if you worry about the fact that you may have achieved, you may receive diseases, then you will certainly receive diseases because you are thinking and vibrating at the level of sickness. And so you will attract to yourself sickness. For some people, this might be a nice interlude. In other words, they have had some time off from work, and for many people, they are receiving some money to help them through this time period. And so it may be almost like a vacation. They may be very happy to get back to work. They may feel better and empowered and liking their job more because they've had a rest from it, because everyone needs a rest. And some people do not take vacations and do not give themselves time to a break away from what they are doing. They just continue to plug at it. So that question, is the new normal going to be different? It certainly will, to some extent or another. Perhaps not by much, but it is very possible that there will still be significant differences in how people think, act, and behave. Some people will have given up smoking during this time period, saying, oh, I don't have the stress, now's my chance, I don't have as much money as I did, I will stop smoking. And so they may bring themselves to better health. For other people, this perhaps has caused them to smoke more. And so they will not be in as good as health. You see, these are individual changes that will happen because every individual is different in the physical world. As you all know, you are all special, you are all different. So what do you want your world to be? How is it going to change for you? Are you going to take different actions? It's entirely up to you. Now, you may be asking, will the new normal be different from the old normal in the sense, will we continue to have government regulations on some of these things? And your government regulations change all the time. There are laws and things you would not have thought 10 years ago or 20 years ago would possibly, you would not have dreamed that people would be upset over these things. But they have gotten upset over many things which might have seemed trivial before. Your football players and their traumatic injuries, traumatic head injuries they experience playing such a violent game such as football was considered acceptable. It was one of the things that just went along with the job. But now teams must be cognizant of the health of their players. If they have had head injuries, they are not allowed to go and play immediately. If there are other things that may have gone wrong, they are usually encouraged to be given the time to heal properly before they come back into the game, because now teams can be sued because they do not see to the well-being and health of their players. So many things have changed in this regard. And there are many other little ways that they have changed. Some things may be done away with, as seen as not necessary. People may not have meetings in conference rooms as much as they used to. Why get everybody together in one room when they have perfected such programs and situations such as the one that enables us to speak to you all today? Zoom, it's called, and you can have your meetings and accomplish what you need without the cost of everyone's time and trouble away. It actually is a shorter situation. There is no time lost in travel. Everyone can spend the full amount of time at their desks, so to speak. When the meeting is over, they can get right back to work. There isn't the time to go to your room or take a break, so that people may be more efficient in the ways that they work with their computers now. Everyone has been forced to become a little bit more knowledgeable about using their computers to complete the work that they have to do. Many people may not have to commute to work any longer, as they have become proficient at working at a distance, and through uses of these virtual meetings, manage to get all their work done. For some, it will not change at all, for they are required to be in their place of employment, certainly those who work in restaurants and servers and things like that. Maybe they will be forced to wear masks, perhaps, but that is not likely to last very much longer beyond once it is seen exactly that this virus is no longer a menace to people.
Markstetzel has his hand. You can ask him to ask a question.
Mark, would you please ask your question? Unmute yourself.
Sure. Okay. A friend of mine has an apartment inside her house that she's renting, and a woman by the name of Colleen is interested in the apartment. I was just wondering if you get any vibes from that, whether she's a good risk.
So that you are asking me to be a reference for Colleen.
Not a reference, just insight.
In a sense, yes, to see whether she is a good person. I do not know if I can help you with that. Do you happen to know her last name?
I did, but I can't remember it.
Because while Colleen may not be the most common name, Well, tell me the name of your friend.
Betty Jean.
Betty Jean. I will try to look into Betty Jean to find out the information via what I can find around Betty Jean. One moment, please. So your concern is because this apartment is in the home of Betty Jean, and as far as the welfare of Betty Jean with this person using the apartment, I do not see an issue. And as long as she has, Betty Jean has checked for and made it proper inquiries, verified employment, that sort of thing, to make sure that the person is able to pay her bills, it will probably be just fine for Betty Jean.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, a follow-up to the last question was, what will the lack of personal contact have on society?
One moment, please. That is a very interesting question. For this lack of personal contact is a bit temporary. Do you understand? I'm trying to, one moment. Again, it's very hard to generalize because people are individuals. There are some people for whom this is a frightening experience, more so than it is for other individuals. For those individuals, they may be reticent to have more social contacts for quite a while and may choose to stay a little bit distant from other people. This will not be to their benefit because mankind is mostly a social animal and does better and thrives when he has friends. So while this lack of contact should not be a problem, it is possible that it will result in problems for others simply because for people who have difficulty making friends, who are considered to be shy, this period with having no one, everyone keeping a distance from everyone else, does not help them to overcome their shyness and make the friends that they need. Even when it is open and you are permitted these things, they are still handicapped and may have withdrawn from individuals with whom they had been friendly in the past. Or they may find these individuals, that they have lost friends due to the illness and people transitioning, they may find themselves more timid and even make it harder for them to make friends. But for the most part, once social contact is allowed, people will embrace it gladly.
I have a question along the same line, perhaps, and that is with regard to what do you see the long-term effects might be on the children, grade schoolers and high schoolers who are now sequestered at home and trying to learn at home and being surrounded by very protective parents. I know that my parents, and you see many of the older people who went through the Depression, were affected through that experience for their entire lifetime, being afraid to spend money or perhaps hoarding money under their mattress type of a thing. Will there be any effect on the children of being more fearful than previous generations about health and well-being?
once again, you have to say that there are always those individuals who might become more fearful about health and well-being. But for the most part, unless they have had parents which emphasized this a great deal, and those parents might have emphasized it without the virus, that there is, it is unlikely that most children will become, I guess, paranoid about illnesses if they are allowed their freedom. The biggest problem that I see is that there is a difference in parents' ability to cope with and cope with the subject matter and the teaching ways that are currently in use in school. In other words, my concern is that some parents will not be able to have helped their children, have not been able to be of much help to their children in helping them to learn that which they must learn or they should learn to complete the knowledge that they need for this school, for this grade in school that they are in at this time, which leads them behind perhaps when they start school and can again be back in the classroom. What I am seeing is much more difficulty for teachers because the students will be at all different levels. There will be no way to know whether everyone has understood or even gotten all the work that they were supposed to learn, since teachers cannot truly evaluate the children and do not know if the parents have taught the children correctly as she would have taught them. So this is going to be quite difficult for the teachers. What I am saying is next fall, when school opens again in a normal way, although all the children in a grade are technically, the grade they are in is supposed to be there, you may find that some of the children have not stuck and learned the material that they were expected to learn as a result of there being a lack of education in their personal home, or there was no discipline from the parents to make the children study. That is going to be the biggest problem in having all the children stay home. Who has learned what they're supposed to learn? Who has not learned what they're supposed to learn? How do you cope and how you get everyone up at the same level? You see, when the children are at school every year and the curriculum is the same for each child, even though you have the differences in children, there will be more uniformity in result than you currently have at this time. So that it will be most difficult on the schools and the teachers when they go back in the fall, how to cope with the different levels of competence. While schools always review in the fall because children always forget what they were taught in the previous, some of what they were taught in the previous year. It may take a little bit longer, a little bit more work, and be a little more difficult. As for the children, they will simply be happy to see one another. They will be interested in playing and talking and be even more distracted if they are not allowed to be with their friends before returning to school, which will also be a problem for teachers.
Barbara Harden has her hand raised.
Yes, Barbara.
Yes, hello, Ron Carr. This is Barbara. I have a question about trans-channel mediums. You come through Norma, but like Jane Roberts had Seth come through her, and Esther Hicks has Abraham come through her. So my question is, are you the same group of entities, or is it separate? Do you intermingle? And I know we all have spirit guides, but are we all capable of channeling?
Thank you for that question. And the answer right in the beginning to your last question is no, you are not all capable of channeling. A channel, to be a good channel, requires certain, I will say physical requirements. It has to do with, I do not know if these are physical or how they are in the body, but you are certainly aware that some individuals have minds that are very methodical and very detail oriented, and then you have more creative minds, and you have other minds that are, people have minds that are kind of like engineering and can figure out how things work. Everyone's mind is different. To be a good medium, you need a mind and a brain that is not defined, that is more open. They are able to be influenced more easily, let us put it that way. They cannot have strong opinions of their own, because people who have strong opinions are resistant to allowing those opinions to be changed. They could not channel through information that went against their opinions. They simply would be reluctant to it, and it would be difficult for spirit to communicate these things that someone did not believe. And so you need to have someone who is open-minded. Now, as to your question about Abraham and Seth and myself, we are individuals. However, sometimes we are also groups, such as Abraham. He is not always exactly the same spirit, but he is a group of spirits that channel through Esther Hicks under the name of Abraham. They are compatible all with one another, and they all desire to help, and they are all able to make the contact with Esther and to move into her aura, into her physical being. And so they all can manipulate her. The medium, however, while she does channel many spirits, mostly her spirit guides, these themselves, we come in individually and choose to identify ourselves separately. Abraham's group simply is willing to be all called Abraham, so to speak. It isn't necessary for guides to identify themselves with different aspects of the medium's life to be a guide. They can simply be a guide and cover all different aspects of a medium's life or a life in the physical world that they choose to help them. So we are not all the same. You must recognize that the basic truths are all the same. Now, are these truths communicated exactly through each medium? And the answer to that is also no. Although the truths we are trying to communicate and to help you to understand may be identical in nature, due to the makeup of the medium, the medium does affect the way the information comes through along the line, as I have just said, about people who have strong opinions do not make good mediums. They cannot be mediums frequently because they cannot release the control of their body and are not willing to give over that control to a spirit entity Although they may want to with their physical mind, they may not be able to because of their makeup and their personalities. And so not everyone can be a medium. Now, I started to explain why the content is often slightly different, even though the truth that is behind the content is identical. And that, again, is due to the medium. So that the medium, yes, spirit, we must use the vocabulary and mind of the medium. If the medium is not well educated, does not have a good vocabulary, we can only use the vocabulary that it has. We cannot speak a different language than the medium knows. If the medium knows more than one language, spirit can express itself in more than one language. But remember that each language brings with itself its own set of limitations and ways of thinking. You do not understand how limiting language is for us in communication. And so we can only choose from among the vocabulary and to a certain extent the beliefs and opinions of the mediums to express what we know to be true. And so things will not always come out sounding the same, even though the intent is to convey identical truths. Also, perceptions and knowledge over time changes and grows, so that those people who were mediums 100 years ago, their belief and understanding of the physical body and the sciences was not as complete as that which is known today. And as a result, using the mind of a medium 100 years ago, they could not have expressed anything about atomic energy or nuclear energy or even the composition of a cell or a molecule. These things were only believed to have existed, but they had not, were not able to see or know them. The things that you know today, where science is concerned, makes it much easier for spirit to speak of these things. It would have been impossible 100 years ago. And of course, you would not have asked the question anyway.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
You are welcome. Are there other questions?
Ron Carr, it's Elizabeth. By chance, do you know the name of my guardian angel?
You would like to know the name of one of your guides, and you would like to know the name of one of your guardian angel in particular, is the way you think of it. Let me ask Juana to find out for you. Just one moment.
Thank you so much.
She gives me the name of Sophia. Juana says that your guardian angel can be known as Sophia.
Thank you so much.
You are most welcome. Are there other questions?
Hello. Hi. What you were saying before about people being isolated now, the thought just occurred to me that there were a lot of people in the world that isolated themselves on purpose. Hermits, they used to call them. I don't know if they still do. But I was wondering, since you were saying we're social beings and we learn by interacting with each other, did it harm these people like spiritually, or harm their development by, you know, isolating themselves?
Those individuals you know as hermits. Now, many of the hermits have chosen to isolate themselves for religious reasons. In their belief, they believe that the contemplation and meditation on God is best achieved when they are isolated from others and isolated from the world. They believe that by eschewing the things of the world, by living simply and alone, that they can more completely perfect the beings that they are.
Does it work?
Well, that is an interesting question. Does it work? It certainly does in one way, but it is a very narrow viewpoint. You can, to know about yourself, your spiritual self, to know yourself as God, to know God intimately well and have him reflected in your life is much more difficult to do when you are out in the physical world and in society, because you are constantly having demands put upon yourself by others, individuals, and circumstances. To remain centered in yourself, in your best self, to do the best, be the best person that you can every day is much more difficult when you have the demands of society placed upon you. A hermit left alone is allowed to contemplate and do what he needs to do all by himself without interruption. He does not have the opportunity to become annoyed at children or others that are speaking to him and interrupting his thoughts and taking him away from the work that he feels he needs to do. If he is cooking his breakfast, he is cooking his breakfast without interruption or distraction. If he is eating his breakfast, he is eating his breakfast. He can focus upon that act and be always in the moment without distraction. And so his life is one in which there are no distractions. It is much easier to contemplate God and to contemplate the glories of God. To be in society, to have to deal with people all the time and all the demands of living is, and to be centered and to be godlike in your being and enlightened in your speaking and your actions is much more difficult when you are in the physical world. And so you make great progress in learning self-discipline and perfecting your soul when you remain in society. I believe that answers your question.
Pretty much.
You need have to, do I need to give you further clarification?
Well, it all sounds cool about being in contact with yourself if you're all alone and stuff. I guess I'm kind of trying to make a balance. Is it better or worse to be isolated like that and get in contact with your God inside you? Or is it better to keep trying to do it while you're in society?
Oh, well, like most things, it is not a question of is it better or worse. It is just different. For there are challenges when you are alone of loneliness. There may rise within yourselves the desire to have conversation or company with others. Certainly, when all you are doing is contemplating God and his manifestation in nature and within yourself, it is sometimes very monotonous. Do you understand? And so that in itself is a different challenge. So how do you find to stay vital and alive and praying and helpful when you are sequestering yourself away from people?
Right. You don't have much chance to be helpful because there's nobody to be helpful to except you.
That is it. You can send out love into the world, of course. You can send out peaceful thoughts into the world constantly. There are religious sects which do not allow speaking, and so they are supposed to be thinking and praying during their times, and they keep their communication down to the smallest amounts that are necessary. Because one, they do not want to disturb the contemplation of others, and they do not want themselves to be distracted from their own contemplation. And if you wish to do that sort of thing, you can research. There are more than one types you can find them in Buddhist societies and Hindu societies, as well as other Christian religions societies also.
Okay. When you were talking, it just brought up another thought about sending out love to the world. It seems there's a lot of groups of people that are doing that right now in general, all over the world. And the thing is, are they going to forget all about that when we go back to work, and so to speak, and back to so-called normal life?
You have hit the nail on the head. Because they will be too engrossed in other activities. Many of them may keep the discipline and the practice, however, depending upon how they choose to set up their life. If they like continuing to do that, and the groups they are functioning with make agreement that at noontime, every day we will spend 5 minutes sending out love and healing across the world, or peace and harmony out across the world, and we will all do this at noon. It is possible they will keep up the practice.
That would be good.
That would be good.
Mm-hmm.
It is good for everyone to choose to keep that practice.
Yes. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Hi, Ron Carr. This is Marguerite Harden. I have a fairly general question. I've just been doing a lot of yoga and reading about the chakra system and our energy system, and I've been in awe of just how this all came about so long ago. And I'm wondering if you could, for one, just like validate the system and how it's described by yogis, and for another, just explain how these like ancient societies figured this out, how that information was transmitted to them.
I understand your amazement. If you look at any progress that has been done, whether it comes from creating flour and making bread, to making soap, to anything that happens in the world, and that's happened hundreds and sometimes thousands of years ago. It is amazing to think that people came up with these things and it all happened. But it is just as amazing to know that your scientists, the things they now know about cells and life and creation and viruses and bodies and physics, and that you can go to the moon, these are just as amazing things to find out. So there will have always been people who sought to know and understand why and how. Now, they may have been thinking on a more elementary level, liking fire and heat. They contemplated how could they how could they start fires when they wanted to? How could they keep a fire alive? How could they take fire from one place to another? How could they make light that sustained itself? How could they do that? How did they come up with the candle? There are always questions. And so those same people that we are speaking of, the same types of people, contemplated and wondered about, when you were talking about the energy systems of the individual, how there have always been people who are able to see the energy that comes off of people, and maybe are able and aware of and able to see auras, and this is what comes off of people. There have always been those who are psychic, and had the ability to hear or to know what other people are speaking or thinking, and have this awareness. There have always been tools used for divination, which the tools may seem silly and ridiculous, such as the entrails of the chicken telling you what your fortune would be, but it was the way people chose the tool they chose to be able to look forward in the future for an individual that they were reading. So how does this answer your question? There's always those people who saw the auras, could see the different energy, could see the different layers. There were those who could be aware and sense the different layers on the different areas, the chakras, those which you are calling. When you do not have medicines and tools to do things, your senses, your psychic senses, those that go along with your spirit, your soul, are, you are more able to access that information. And so people learned things, one, through spirit making it known, because inventions have also often been sent down from spirit world and have been picked up by many people who were clairaudient or clairvoyant. And these inventions, it allowed them to manifest and bring these inventions into physical existence. That is why you usually find when someone comes up with an invention to do something new, it is found out and figured out in more than one part of the world, because that information is sent forth from spirit, if you will, or from God, if you want to think of it a different way. We are all connected within the mind of God. We are all part of the mind of God. Our minds are all connected within the mind of God. And so what is known by God has the capability of being known by all minds. And so there are those sensitive individuals who would contemplate these things and be aware of these things and ask questions of these things, and the knowledge would come to them. If you need to know and understand something, if you focus on your question and just ponder it for a little while and continue to ponder it later on in the day and that night when you're going to bed, and you are always pondering a question, soon ideas will come to you with the answers to your question, and you will begin to see and understand things you did not know before. This happens today. It does not necessarily, is not limited to just what happened to people centuries ago. And so these questions were asked and pondered, and the information became known. And those people who were most spiritual in nature, most clairvoyant, clairaudient, would get more and more information about the energy systems of an individual. Of course, if you are speaking of hatha yoga, where you are adopting different positions, figurations, these are stretches. These are stretches that have been figured out by people over centuries of if we move in this way, if we hold this position, we are stressing this individual, this muscle. We are helping our arms, we are helping our legs, we are allowing, when you twist, you actually do massage your insides. And so people are aware that by doing these different positions, they feel different things in their bodies. And that is the purpose of yoga in that way. It is a meditation. It focuses your mind on the position that you are holding, whatever it happens to be. If you are sitting down with your legs straight out in front of you, you stretch your arms forward and lean as far forward as you can, and you hold the position for as long as you choose a few counts of time, whatever it happens to be, and then you return. And then maybe you change your position slightly and you pull different muscles and you do things. And these are obvious within your own body when you contemplate them. And the act of paying attention to your stretches and what you are stretching and acting is actually a meditation, which helps to settle your mind, and is the same thing as doing perhaps a mantra or breath counting. It is as effective a meditation as any other meditative techniques. And this was all learned and realized many centuries ago. And it is an amazing process when you contemplate it.
Yeah, perfect. That was really interesting. Thank you. I do have another question, just following up on your laws of attraction. The sort of like walking around and just feeling really confident and just trying to attract really happy things and being a happy person and being a loving person. I mean, it makes sense, like attracts like, but it also just feels like maybe it's Pollyanna, if that makes sense. And I can't help but think that I see loving people who don't attract love. You know, it just seems like it doesn't always work. And maybe it's a little bit like overly idealistic. Can you give tips, or I don't know?
Are you sure these people for whom it doesn't work are truly loving?
I guess I don't know for sure.
No, you see them in one aspect, you see them as they are acting, and you may think that they appear to be very loving. But perhaps there are other parts of themselves that you are not seeing at that time. And so it is rare when someone who is truly loving is not loved by many other people.
Well, for example, like someone else on this call today said, I've been really going after this raise. Like, I want this raise. I've been trying to manifest it. Like, asked you, are they going to manifest it? Is that going to come to their life? Like, what are they doing wrong? Like, why didn't they get the raise?
Well, actually, in that particular circumstances, there has been much unsteadiness and uncertainty in the place that she works as to what is happening. And she made reference to the fact that there is a new management. So when the old management was there and people were not sure whether they would have jobs, would they lose jobs? Would there be, there is something new coming in and they are taking over this store, new owners. What, am I going to have a job? How could she get a raise in that sort of situation? There was too much uncertainty going on. So it had nothing to do with her abilities, but very much to do with the circumstances that were around her at the time. And so you know that you simply cannot go out and sunbathe in the middle of winter when you are in the northern hemisphere and the temperature is probably down to 20 degrees. It is not possible. The circumstances are not correct. You would have to find some other way of getting your tan. Go to a tanning bed or go to Florida, and then you can get your tan. But you have to have the right circumstances to manifest what you want so that things don't always come through in the time spot that you want. And as a result, you could say that she was unsuccessful, but it was other things that were limiting her ability to take action, which stopped her from being successful. And there is the question of want. I want to raise is not necessarily the same as raising your vibration to a level that an increase in your prosperity is guaranteed. And so you have to know that you are deserving of that raise. Just to want one does not mean you will get one, but to know that you truly deserve the raise for many different reasons. And you have to, in order to do that, you have to be aware of what reasons are going to be most important to the individual who is going to grant you the raise, and you have to embody those reasons. That is what raising your vibration does. So that, well, we do not know. So we will say that if this is a selling position, that they want you to make more sales than everyone else. And so you have to be an exemplary salesman. You have to be, if you want a position in management, you have to be very good at doing what management wants. And you have to have all your paperwork done, and you have to do everything correctly in every way. They want to see, if you're going to be a manager, how well you get along with your fellow employees. Are you able to take a leadership position on your own, without being given the title? Can you inspire others to be better salespeople? Can you, encourage other people in such a way so that they see that you are deserving of being made a manager? Because a manager may be, certain things will be expected of a manager. And it may, part of that is managing people. So how well do you get along with other people? Do people listen to you? Do they do what you want them to do? There are so many things that you have to be ready to step up to. And when you step up to that position yourself and you do those things, why, then that's when you will become a manager. And if it doesn't appear at this place and this time, in this location, and you have already demonstrated all those skills to yourself at the very least, it is time to apply for a job at a different location and to put yourself forward as having been successful in inspiring others to be better salespeople, to inspire others to get all their paperwork done and die. You can lead this, you can lead that. You have to show that. And if you show that on your resume to another employer, he may say, oh, this is just the person I am looking for to be my manager in this particular area in this particular way. So that is what is truly there in the law of attraction. Now, as for your Pollyanna, if you have read the story or you have seen the movie, had a way of taking every situation and turning it into a good learning experience and a good situation for herself. It was something that her father or her parents had trained her to do, because I believe the story is they were missionaries and they taught her this so that she would be resilient. And while it was very annoying to many people to always have this cheerful child around, she soon won the hearts of everyone. So part of the tension in the story was, I believe, the lady, someone who was not happy, that she lived with, and was chronically unhappy. And she was the always happy one. And that person put her down. And she did not let that affect her, of course. But this was the attitude that it is bad to be a Pollyanna. Because in truth, everyone in the story ends up loving Pollyanna because of the person she is. So when you say, it makes you seem like a Pollyanna, you are using it in almost a derogatory term to mean someone who has no reality of life about them, rather than someone who is always optimistic and cheerful. And I recommend that you adopt being a Pollyanna as a way of living. Try to find the good in every situation, what you can learn in a situation, and you will find yourself attracting better and better situations to yourself, because you will be learning and growing constantly. And I hope that is helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You are most welcome. It is true. I'm sorry, it is time for us to end.
Yes.
Well, I've just been told that it is time for us to end. So I am going to say, I give you all my blessings. Good night. Hi, I'm back. Okay, you can't say goodnight until I say goodnight. So, and I always like to tell you, remember, I love you all. Good night.
Good night.
And now